it's Emily and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be discussing my 5-star predictions off of my backlist. I have not done super well in the past couple of years reading books that I already own. I tend to just read books from my library or read books from Kindle Unlimited somewhere, and then I end up purchasing the book. Sometimes, not all the time. I have a bit of a wish list of all these books I've given 5 stars to that I've loved, but I don't own, so now I want to go buy them and own them. And there's good in that, because I like being able to keep up on new releases without having to buy every single new release that I like. But it has become an issue that I have not been prioritizing my backlist. That being said, my 5-star predictions today kind of comes with a bit of a challenge to myself within the next year. I have 20 books today that I'm going to talk about, and if I have not read these books within the next year, I'm putting myself on a strict book buying ban that I'm not allowed to buy any more books until I finish these 20. And that'll come into effect next year if I hopefully remember that I made this video. And if you remember that I made this video, then just keep me accountable. I do really want to make it a goal next year to read quite a bit from my backlist. Oh no, not Robin. The books I have today, I feel pretty excited about most of them. When I look at these books on my shelf, I'm just super excited to read them. And I don't want that excitement to dim. I'm very much putting it on myself next year, this is my year, to finally read these books. So without any more preamble, let's just jump into the video. The first book I have on my list is The Lonely Hearts Club by Elizabeth Eulberg. I have quite a lot of old backlist titles, some are from the early 2010s. I feel like that's when this one came out. When did this one come out actually? 2010, so really early 2010s. Elizabeth Eulberg is an author that I really love, but I don't hear a lot of people talking about. I think partly because she kind of switches between writing middle grade and young adult books, so she doesn't have a new young adult book coming out all of the time. I don't know if this is her first book or for even her first young adult book, but I've had pretty good luck with Elizabeth Eulberg so far. I read About Our Friends back when I was a teenager, and I absolutely loved it. And then I read Take a Bow back in 2020. And I also loved it. I think I read Pride and Prejudice that same year, and I really didn't like it, but that's a book I definitely want to give a second chance to once I kind of am more familiar with Pride and Prejudice and see if I like it better that time around, or if that book is just genuinely not good. And so then we have The Lonely Hearts Club. Now, do I know much about this book? Not particularly. I think it's just about a singles club, and then there's going to be a romance in it. And then there's also a sequel that I don't know anything about. But I mainly put this one on the list just because I love Elizabeth Eulberg, and so I definitely want to get around to reading her backlist. I would like to own all of her books, at least all of her YA titles eventually. And I would like to dive into her middle grade at some point too. I plan on us making another 5-star predictions for my most anticipated releases of the next year. Those ones I'm not going to be mad if I don't read next year. But Elizabeth Eulberg also does make it on that list too, so you'll be hearing me talk about her a bit more. But anyways, that's The Lonely Hearts Club. The next book is probably the one I'm least so sure about on this list, and that is Top 10 by Katie Cotugno. I read 99 Days. Oh, I DNF'd 99 Days. And then had no intention of picking it back up again until I bought this massive book box. It came with I think 260 something books, and it was $150, which was less than $1 for each book. I think this book actually might have come in with that. And also that came in with that was the sequel to 99 Days. So I thought, if I have the sequel on hand, might as well give it another shot. Top 10 is one I am more excited about, as it is a friends to lovers story. And I think he's also a hockey player, so it's a sports romance, which I am. I read a lot of sports romances nowadays. I find them fun. It's not I'm gonna pick up a romance because there's sports in it or not, but I am quite drawn to those books. And I remember when I read the plot of this years ago, I think before it came out, I was super stoked to read it, and that feeling has definitely not gone away. I'm a little unsure because of 99 Days not being something that worked for me, but I hope this is. This one seems like it might be more up my alley, and it just gives me that YA feel that I used to have back in the day when I definitely more commonly picked up YA books. I think that's something else I want to do more next year, is pick up more YA books, because I've kind of somewhat transitions to adult, but I definitely can tell I still love YA so much, and I'm just not picking it up so much, and I would like to, but I think I also just hear about adult more, so I think I want to definitely challenge myself to pick up some more YA books next year, but that's a whole other thing, so we'll see if I'm right. I feel my 5-star predictions for just my general 5-star predictions video, whenever I get around to making that, will be more accurate, but anyways, moving on. The next book we have is A Whole New World by Liz Braswell. I think I mainly put this on the list, partly just because I want to start the series, It's like the Disney Twisted Tales series, and each kind of asks some question. Like this one is, what if Aladdin had never found the lamp? I just find them so interesting. There's all these like Disney stories they're still releasing. I think this one came out like 2015 maybe? 2016, I was really close. I think the Rapunzel one on my shelf, and so I've even been like, I want to collect this whole series. I just find the idea like really fascinating. And Aladdin is like in my top 3 favorite Disney movies. Like honestly, the top 3 are kind of all tied. I would say Aladdin, Mulan, and Frozen are my favorite Disney movies. So because I just love Aladdin stuff, you're gonna see there's another Aladdin book that's on this list. But I'm just really excited to read this one, and I've been putting it off for, not since 2016, like this one I bought last year, but I've been meaning to get around this one for quite a while. I also have made the decision to put some sequels on this list, so you know, prioritizing that. And so the next book we have is Invaded by Melissa Landers. Now, for one, I have realized within the past few years, I am a sci-fi girly, and I need to actually get into more sci-fi because the amount that I actually read it is kind of sad, but I feel like I could pick up a sci-fi at any point in time and be in the mood to read it. So, you know, I mean, I love contemporary romance, that's my go-to, but also I do love a good sci-fi. I read Alienated, I want to say when I was in 9th grade. Yeah, I was in 9th grade. I think it was in the new year. So, goodness gracious. That was like 8 years ago, almost, you know, we're getting close to 10 years ago since I had read that book. And I've owned the sequel, I feel like, for quite a while, but never got around to it. But I gave Alienated 5 stars. I read most of it in a night, and I was like obsessed with it. And whenever I think back on Alienated, I still think very fondly of that book. So why I haven't picked up Invaded yet, I don't know. The premise of Alienated is basically it's about like an alien exchange program, so an alien starts like living at her house, and then there's like a forced proximity searchiness and they fall in love. But it was so good. I remember I really loved it. And so I also ended up buying United, the 3rd book in the series, because I knew I definitely wanted to complete it. So, you know, I think next year's also the year I need to complete the series. I'm gonna make a whole goals video, I think, because the more I'm talking in this video, the more I'm realizing I have a lot of goals and things I definitely want to do next year and things I want to prioritize. So we're gonna work on it. The only thing that makes me like a little unsure is I think they might be separated more stuff the book. So I think that could hinder my rating if that is the case. Especially because that's also the reason Prodigy by Marie Lu, I've never read it. I read Legend and I loved it, and then I never read Prodigy because I found out they were separated the whole book, and I was like, absolutely not. So that might be the worst thing. But I think these two end up together in the end. So we'll see. I think I just need to read more sci-fi, honestly. If you have sci-fi, predominantly YA recs, honestly, whatever. Any sci-fi rec, I'll take. I need to read more sci-fi, and I need to get into the genre, and I really like it, so. Okay, I'm done talking about this book now. Next is a book that honestly I wouldn't have heard of had I not bought those books last year, and this is the second book. For some reason I thought that this was the first one. Goodness gracious, we're gonna put this back on the shelf. I think it was there. Okay, I should have looked at the cover and saw that said sequel to Seeker. But the book is Seeker by Arwen Ellis Dayton. Apparently it was soon to be a motion picture. I have never heard of this book in my life. But all I know is it's a fantasy story, and I think there's a Friends to Lovers component in there. That's all I remember. And I remember when I read the plot line, I was very intrigued by it. I was like, sign me up, I want to read this now. And I got the whole series, I believe, with that box thing. Fantasy and other one of those genres, I think I reach for it a bit more often than I do sci-fi, but I would like to reach for it more and complete some of the fantasy series I've been meaning to for forever. I want to like even out, you know, my readings taste a bit more. Like read more fantasy and read more sci-fi because I love those genres and I just don't read them enough. But I would like to give this one a shot and see if I even want to keep the rest of the series. Next, we have another sequel, which is Aerie by Maria Devana Headley. I read Magonia back in 2020. And before I read it in 2020, I had been staring at it on my shelf for years. I had been wanting to read it for forever. I had saw like the trailer, I think in like 2015 for it, and I was super excited about it, that I bought it pretty immediately, I want to say. I'm glad I held off with that one because I think had I read it when I was younger, I may have just thought it was a really weird book and not appreciated it for what it was. And so here is the sequel just staring at me, and I've just been really scared to read this book. I don't know what direction it could go into, and I think because I only read Magonia, I have really high expectations going into it, and I really don't want to be let down. Because I think I read These Broken Stars the same year I read Magonia, and I love These Broken Stars. And then I read the other two, I read the second book. I enjoyed that one in that series. This is by a different author, obviously. And then I have Their Fractured Light, which is just chilling here. But from what I've read of that one, I have not vibed with it so much. That was kind of like a letdown for the series. So most people, when I recommend these Broken Stars to them, I'm like, just don't finish the series. Just you can just read that one and be done. I'm also still like really intrigued where the story is gonna go. Basically, Magonia is about this girl named Aza who has like a feather in her lung, which is also part of some like rare breathing disorder disease that she has is so rare they've named the disease after her. And then one day, Aza ends up dying, and she goes to this place called Magonia, where she kind of starts to learn more about herself and her family. And it's also dual perspective. You also get her best friend's point of view, and there's a cute friends to lover story that like I'm obsessed with. I'm obsessed with these two. But I'm just really scared, okay? I did buy this one, and I went out of my way to even purchase the hardcover so it would match. But I'm just worried it's just not going to live up to my expectations, and I've been putting it off forever because of that. But I really want to read it. Next we have The Thousandth Floor by Katharine McGee. This book is about I haven't synopsized all these books, but that's because I don't remember some of the synopsis and some of them I do. But this is about this utopian society, which I feel like utopian's not so common. Like I feel like dystopian kind of is, but then I think utopians kind of can be dystopians too. Utopian society, everyone lives in this like 1,000-floor tower. That sounds honestly kind of terrifying. And this is where everyone lives, everyone does their society stuff, and that's kind of the premise of the book. And then I think at the beginning of this book, it opens with one of the characters, like, jumping off the tower, and so there's, like, a mystery of, like, who jumped. But it's also following the lives of, like, four different characters? Oh, 5. Yeah. There's Lita, who, yeah, there's something with drugs, I guess, with her. There's Eris, there's Rylan, there's Watt, and who's, like, a nerd, and then Avery, who was, like, I think, created to be perfect. And I think there was kind of a romance between Watt and Avery, or at least he was kind of into her, and I was really into that, so. And then I remembered I didn't want her to jump, so I don't know if she does. But I got, like, halfway through it and, you know, put it down for no good reason. Like, this just happens to me sometimes, especially pre my ADHD medication days. I'm a little better at it now, but I want to pick back up again because I was having a very good time with it, so I feel like this one is one I'm a bit more sure about because I was already loving it, but hopefully I love it to the same extent when I pick it back up again. Next we have another sequel, which is Off the Page by Jodi Picoult and Samantha Van Leer. I read Between the Lines probably in 2018. Oh my goodness, it's been too many years now. I don't even remember what year I read it in. It's been that long. I also repurchased my edition of this book. I think I still have my other edition somewhere. Yeah, it's right over here, the paperback. But I found this at the thrift store, and I feel like the spine of this is more pretty, and the cover is more pretty and accurate to the book than the paperback I bought. But I loved Between the Lines when I read it, and so I'm excited about this one, especially because there's more story to be told. I really loved, what was her name? Her name was Layla, I want to say, Oliver. Delilah, oh my goodness, I was totally wrong. But the first book follows this girl named Delilah who is very into this like little fairy tale, and one of the characters from the book has started to fall in love with her. She's also in love with him. And so she finds out that basically the story is kind of like alive in a way. They're all kind of like actors in like the story, so whenever someone like opens up the book again, they kind of go to get into their places to start reading again. Is this like, yeah, that's just part of the book. Okay. It looked like it was kind of like there was like a lot of hair here. I was like, but no, I think that's part of the design. But when someone opens the book, like they have to relive the story again or re-act it out. But when the book's closed, they get to kind of just go off and live their lives. And so Oliver wants out of the book. He wants to be out in the real world with Delilah. And so the whole first book follows them trying to get him out of the book. And this is the sequel. This is the follow-up to that. I think this first book's also a play. So, you know, I also want to see that at some point because I think that's really cool. But I love the first book. I think I'll love this one just as much. I've heard good things about it, and procrastination, ADHD, has made me put this off. So I just need to go and read it. So I think it'll be good. Okay, moving on. Next we have one that I'm like also pretty certain about. I've also been procrastinating on it as I usually do. But that is 1,000 Heartbeats by Kiera Cass. So Kiera Cass is one of my favorite authors. She kind of has like a special place in my heart because I read the Selection series, and that's the book series that got me into reading in the first place. And while I really did not like The Betrothed, that may be the most disappointing book I've ever read in my life, I've heard good things from this one from my family who has read it. They really enjoyed it. I also remember, I think I got it on my birthday. It came on my birthday like 2 years ago. It's Dual Point of View, which I think is the first time Kiera Cass has done that in one of her books. So that's pretty exciting. And I think it's like an enemies to lovers thing involving royalty, and for the most part, aside from The Betrothed, Kiera Cass is royalty well. And this is her most recently released. I don't think she's released anything after this, but I've heard great things about it, and I need to get around to it because I haven't yet. It's also very, very chunky, which I'm, you know, she hasn't written a book this long, so it's basically like 2 books in one, in a way. But I'm excited about it. I think it'll be a good time. It's Kiera Cass. You know, hopefully she won't let me down again. The next book we have is Places We've Never Been by Casey West. Casey West is probably my all-time favorite author. I've never disliked anything I've read from her. I need to get around to reading the rest of her backlist. I think I was doing a pretty good job of it at one point, and then I kind of just like fell off of it. But I think I've read at least half of it, probably less than half now that she's coming out with another book at the end of December. But this is like a road trip book, giving like young adult people who meet on vacation kind of vibes. It follows these two ex-best friends who end up going on like a vacation road trip together. So I just think it'd be a good time. I mean, I haven't, Casey West, I feel like Friends to Lovers, hasn't always worked for me. Like, it still works, but it's not like, oh my goodness, like I'm obsessed. It's and with some of her other books. Like, my favorite books from her have been The Distance Between Us, Lucky in Love, and By Your Side. Which Distance Between Us kind of is like strangers, friends, lovers, but it's more like the rich-poor aspect of it. But they kind of develop a friendship in that one. And then in Lucky in Love, they are co-workers. That one does feel kind of friends to lovers-ish. I would consider that one friends to lovers. And then By Your Side is kind of like forced proximity, kind of enemies to lovers, sort of, I guess. I don't know. I think these two friends are reconnecting. I think it'll be a good time. The cover's gorgeous. I'm gonna read anything Casey West writes. I'm excited. She has like an adult book coming out. I don't know when, if it's this next year. I hope it's this next year. I want it now. So anyways, just released a book in a while, but I've been, procrastinating on her backlist anyways. Next book we have is Geekerella by Ashley Poston. So this is like a Cinderella retelling, and it takes place at a convention, and it's super nerdy. And, I love Ashley Poston. I read The 7-Year Slip. I loved it. I've owned this one for like about 10 years, I think. In 2016, I think that's when this came out and when I bought this, right? It's not been 10 years yet, right? 2017. Okay, it hasn't been quite 10 years yet. It's been like only 7 years. I think her and then like the actor guy from the show are like online best friends, I want to say. It seems kind of similar to one of my favorite books of all time, Cinder and Ella. So I just think this would be a good time. I love books that are super nerdy. I love fairy tale retellings, and this just sounds like my vibe. And this is like Ashley Poston's debut, I want to say. I'm pretty sure. And I love The 7-Year Slip. So, while a novel love story didn't work for me, and that one definitely had more of that fandom culture element to it, I think this one will be better than that one was. Speaking of fandom culture, the next one we have is All the Feels by Danica Stone. Now, all I can tell you about this one is that it involves fandoms and book culture and friends to lovers. But I saw this book, I think, at the library originally, and I took a picture of it because I was like really intrigued by the synopsis. And then finally I got myself a physical copy. But that hasn't prioritized it in any way. I still haven't picked this book up, and I just need to. This one sounds like a fun time, okay? It has all those things I would like. Okay, I don't have anything else to say about this book, so we're just gonna move on. The next book I have is Prom Chanted by Morgan Matson, which is the only book on this list, I think, that came out this year. So this book follows two enemies who are going to Disneyland on their prom night. It's also by Morgan Matson, who wrote one of my favorite books of all time, Since You've Been Gone. But anyways, yes, two enemies on their prom night, and they go to Disneyland, and I think while they're in the castle, they get trapped in the Sleeping Beauty story, and they mess things up, and they have to go and fix it. Which, see, even like the Sleeping Beauty character in the back right here. This has, all these things I would like in a book, for, enemies to lovers, but working in a forced proximity situation where they're forced to work together. Superior. Enemies to lovers on its own, kind of, and especially in a contemporary setting, kind of boring. But enemies who have to work together, superior. And especially, taking Sleeping Beauty and like messing it up. I think this is such a fun premise. So I'm very excited about this one, and I've been meaning to get around for it for a while. My mom read it; she liked it overall, so hopefully I do too. Then we have another fandom book. I think it's like Online Friends to Lovers. Another book I'd never heard of before I picked it up, but it's Annalee in Real Life by Janelle Milans. And so I found this one in a little library, and I read the back, and I was like, this sounds like something I would read. And so ever since then, I wanted to read it. Have I yet? No. But, here I am making this video to hopefully prioritize it and actually get around to it. I'm intrigued by the concept, friends to lovers online, and I think they meet in person, and I don't know if they know each other in person or not, but that changes their relationship. I'm excited for it. It sounds like a good time. Next we have Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert. Now, I just have not read Talia Hibbert yet, and I don't know what's wrong with me because I haven't yet, because I need to. Everyone and their mom loves Talia Hibbert, and here I am, just staring at this book on my shelf, not having read it. But this book follows Chloe Brown, who I think she gets like, she almost dies, like has like a near-death experience, and realizes that she is missing out on so much in life. So she makes a bucket list, I think, and she does it, I don't know, with her next door neighbor or something. Ooh, I don't think they like each other, so it's like an enemies to lovers situation. And the two of them do the bucket list together. Everyone loves this book, so I just think I will too. So, I have expectations, even though I haven't read Talia Hibbert before. But hey, I want to read this. I've owned it for quite a while. I just need to get around to it. Then we probably have the book I'm most scared of that I put on this list, and that is, without a doubt, The Raven King by Maggie Stiefvater. I have had this book. This is around the time it came out. I pretty much binge read the Raven Boy series, and then I didn't want the series to end. So you know what I did? I got like halfway through this book and never finished it. Disappointing, because I think that's what I did back in the day. I wouldn't finish things because I didn't want them to end. And I got very attached to series. Nowadays, I read a lot more standalones, so I don't get so attached to them so much because I know I'm just in it for the one book, so it's not as much commitment. I just need to read this. This is ridiculous that it's been on my TBR for this long. It needs to leave. It needs to find a new home on my red shelf. So, you know, I'm done procrastinating it. Time that I finally finish the Raven cycle. Especially because there's a whole other series about Ronan, okay? Like, I have no excuse that I don't want this to end anymore. I know it's not the same, but still. My favorite characters live on. Moving on to my next Aladdin retelling that I was mentioning earlier, I was kind of hinting at it, and that is The Forbidden Wish by Jessica Khoury. Now this one might be the first one off my TBR because I have it set in like a video plan to actually read this book. But this book is an Aladdin retelling where the genie is a girl and the genie and Aladdin fall in love. I was super intrigued by that plot in 2016 when I bought this book, and then proceeded to never read it because I think at the beginning it was like too new on my shelf, so you know, I was trying to prioritize the stuff that had been on my shelf a little longer. But in doing that, I never picked this book up. Now I should have just picked this book up when I was shiny and new and I wanted to read it. Now it still feels shiny and new to me in a way. Like, I know I bought this forever ago, but I still have wanted to read this book. I feel like the desire to read it hasn't left me. So 20 to 25 is my year. It's gonna happen, okay? Next we have Dorothy Must Die by Danielle Page. Now this is a book I probably wouldn't originally put on my 5-star predictions. I bought this book, I think, almost 10 years ago. I bought this in 2016, does it? Yeah, 2016. It's gotten destroyed, unfortunately. So maybe I'll find a new edition of it eventually to replace it. But I started this book earlier this year, and I was listening to the audiobook of it. And I had started it, I think, back when I was in high school or something, and I was not getting into it when I physically read it for some reason. But then when I was into the audiobook, I felt like I was kind of just flying through it, and I could just tell there was something special about this book, and I just wanted to slow down and read it with my eyeballs, so I felt like I was just speeding through the whole book, and I didn't like that. But this book follows a girl named Amy, who lives in the real world and thinks of Oz and Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz as just like a fairy tale movie story, right? And that is until a tornado hits her when she's in Kansas and takes her to Oz. Only Oz is not what she pictured from the movie. It's actually like kind of dark because Dorothy is evil. And so Amy has to defeat Dorothy. I was also intrigued by the romance in this book. I loved him, the man, from the beginning, but I also, you know, I don't know where it's gonna go. I'm looking forward to reading it, and I meant to this past year, and it just hasn't happened yet. So 2025 is my year, hopefully. We are down to the last two. So the next one I have is The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston. So another Ashley Poston on this list. I did put both of them on here because I am not excited about both of them. This book follows a ghostwriter who starts ghostwriting a book with a literal ghost, and that's all I need to know about it. That is intriguing. I hope this is more like The 7-Year Slip and less like a novel love story for me. I hope that I vibe with this book. I hope it's a good time. I'm not sure with the grief element right now because I'm definitely currently grieving, so I'm kind of like maybe later on in 2025, as long as I'm not like grieving again. Even Allie Hazelwood blurbed on this, but since this book came out, I've been so excited to read it because I find the premise so intriguing. I really like magical plots, like in the contemporary romance thing. Like, I like that we're seeing a bit more of that. Like, not witches. Witches are fine, but like I'm not really vibing with those so much. But I like these kind of weirder, there's something kind of fantastical going on, like, you know, a ghostwriter writing with a ghost, or a girl who has a magical apartment that time travels 7 years exactly in the past, or, you know, a girl, I guess, getting trapped in her favorite small town romance series. That plot was intriguing, it just didn't work for me. It's gonna be a banger. I'm saying it now. I'll be really disappointed if it's not, honestly. And the final book on this list is another one. I don't think I remember the synopsis super much, but it's It Ends in Fire by Andrew Schwartz, I want to say is his last name. For those of you who don't know who Andrew is, he used to be a writer on the app Choices and wrote some very notable titles such as Endless Summer and Blades of Light and Shadow being the top ones. And I loved his writing on Choices. I loved the books that he was like, I think, book lead on or just like was writing on. And so I definitely want to pick up some of the writers from Choices have written actual books. Andrew being one of them. I believe this is a standalone. And yeah, the only reason I picked this up was because Andrew wrote it. That's all I need to know. It's giving Blades of Light and Shadow vibes, right? For my Choices friends who know what I'm talking about. I'll put a cover on the screen here, right? Blades vibes, right? I just need to get around to this. I've been wanting to read it for forever and also just compare you know, his individual work to Troy's stuff. I think it's gonna be a good time. I'm excited for it. Oh gosh, is that pile gonna fall? I've been just kind of chilling here with it. So here's a few of the 5-star predictions from a thumbnail. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Hopefully I remember what I said in this video, but yes, book buying ban if I don't finish these by the end of 2025. It's a must. It's gotta happen. I've done procrastinating on it. I also just eyed another book that wasn't on these shelves that I think is gonna be 5 stars, but you know what? That can be included in the next 5-star predictions if I still haven't read it. But thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know if there are books that are on your shelves that you've been meaning to get to for a while like me, maybe even like 10 years or so, that you still are excited about and still think you're gonna get 5 stars too. I'm glad my reading taste hasn't changed like so much that I'm like, the books I'm no longer excited about. I feel like I'm still excited about most of the books I was excited about in 2016. If you like this video, be sure to give it a big thumbs up and subscribe if you want to see more of this lovely face. And I'll talk to y'all soon in a new video. Goodbye!